Welcome back from the break. You're still watching NTV Sport Nights. Do head over to X, use the hashtag NTV Sport Nights, and do send us your comments, your thoughts, or if you have a question, do let us know what that question is. We will now be speaking to Charles Onen, the Lady Cranes Sevens coach.
Good evening, viewers. NTV Sport Nights comes to you from Dubai. The World Rugby HSBC Sevens Challenger Series opener of 2024, where Uganda has had two teams competing, the men and the women. The women did us very, very proud, getting into the top four, but only could finish fourth. And this evening, I'm joined by the coach, Charles Onen, to give us a rundown of what has happened and what could have been for a team that came here to play for the first time. And I could say I'm mightily pleased with how this team has performed. Good evening, Charles.
Yeah, good evening.
Your aspirations, first of all, when you come into the world stage for the very first time, your targets, have they been met, getting into the semi-finals?
Absolutely. We've met some of our targets, the majority of them. We believe that we are not the country, one of the countries that play the worst rugby. We believed in ourselves that we can put up more and give the rest of the teams a competitive game. So it's been a good tournament for us.
When you go back to day one, because this has been a 3-day tournament, let's first talk about the levels of fitness that you need to get through 3 days of rugby, because so often the tournaments you played are 2 days. How big an adjustment is it to play at this stage where you need to play for 3 days? So the levels of fitness must be very different.
Yeah, absolutely. The intensity of the tournament is quite so high, and day one we really fumbled up. Some players had some butterflies in them on how the tournament is going to flow for them, and then they lost 2 games day one, and then day two, when they pick up the momentum, they're used to wrapping up the day with the second day, and they have to pick up 2 wins day two, but then fatigue kicks in day 3. So it's something that we need to adjust on how we prepare for this tournament, because it's literally what we are going to be playing moving forward. 3 days of rugby, and the intensity is not going any lower, so it's improving every single time. But fortunately, our team is fit. We didn't manage to get any injuries, and the girls are in good shape. So it's a matter of just learning from the experience, what we've not done well, and how the tournament is going to flow for us, how we prepare for the next coming tournaments as well. Yeah.
There's a conversation that I want us to revisit, because last year you and I had a conversation about how limited the opportunities are for the women's game to have tournaments at this stage, and that was back in September when you played at the Africa Sevens in Tunisia. And that had been your first tournament in 13 months. But now when I look back, you played in Tunisia, finished 3rd in Africa, you went to the Kenya Safari Sevens in Nairobi, won the tournament, and then thereafter, this is January, and you're in Dubai, and then you get into the semi-finals. That is 3 tournaments in a period of, you could say, 4 months, and that is totally different. Is that exactly what women's rugby needs going forward?
Yeah, it's quite so important for you to progress in whatever thing you do. So it's just we want to see the girls improving every single day. If you look at how we started and where we are right now, there's been quite some good progress with the ladies, and they're putting in really so much, because they're sparing some time to be there for the team and get to the stage. So I like the progress, and I believe we need to just continue our processes, right, so that we play the very best of our game.
When you talk processes, I also think about the numbers, because in the way the Sevens goes, it's very difficult to get through a weekend without an injury. How then do you grow the numbers, the setup? Because I've seen you normally using about 16 players in training camps. How then do you grow the numbers so that even if you have a challenge with 1 or 2 players, then you have options that are being part of the team?
Yeah, so capacity is very, very important, most especially for Sevens. Now that we have a very busy year, we tend to increase on the number of the players in the camp, because some of them will wear out because of fatigue, some of them will be injuries, and we need to keep the momentum going. So it's something that we looked through. We really needed to bring some players on board so that they are within the system, and then we can build a better foundation with a couple of players that we have multiple options for the different positions we have.
For our viewers, we're in Dubai for the World Rugby HSBC Sevens Challenger Series, and this is the opening leg. When it talks about the number of games that they have to play, after this, the two teams, that's the men and women for Uganda, will be in Uruguay, in Montevideo, in March for the second round of the Challenger Series. Then thereafter, the women will go to Poland and the men will go to Munich. The top 4 teams after the 3 rounds, you accumulate points, after the 3 rounds, will go to Madrid for what is the grand final. And then thereafter, the top 4 teams from this, which is the second tier of global rugby, will play against the bottom 4 of the HSBC World 7 Series. And thereafter, we'll see teams that are getting relegated and promoted across the 2 tiers, and that is the prize. And when you get the HSBC World 7 Series, then your life changes, because the players then get to get a bit of money, and the profile of Uganda as a powerhouse in rugby gets to grow. That's how huge the schedule is. And then this team will also be in Ghana for the All Africa Games in 2024. That's how much work Onen and his team need to put in.
You're still watching NTV Sport Nights. Isma, welcome back. What impressed you most with the girls playing?
First of all, I'm mightily impressed that now they have opportunities.
Yeah.
Because it's not been routine. When I first started covering the women's game or covering rugby, way back in, I'm actually aging, because I'm talking about 16 years ago. I don't know where you were 16 years ago, but 16 years ago I was a journalist, and I covered a tournament that we hosted here that got Uganda to play for the Rugby World Cup Sevens for the very first time. And that tournament was in Dubai in 2009. The qualifiers were in 2008. And my memory goes back to the number of times the song Big is Big by Bebe Cool was played every time the girls team was running onto the Chadondo turf, led by Christine Chizito. Marvelous person, and a very, very good player in our own right back in the day. Back then, the game depended on just a few people. Few people put their bodies on the line. Helen Buteme, their coach Ian Park, the one who had started women's rugby here, I think 2004, and then David Mutaka, who is now, I think, a human resource managing partner at Stanbic, and Robert Seguia was an assistant coach in that side. I could almost name everyone who was around women's rugby at the time: Harriet Kayonjo, Rachel Kakaire, Rosenbach Kanyunyuze. It was a very small community. Now when I look back at where they've come to get here in the past 16 years or so, it's a journey that you speak about with a lot of pride. I cannot name all of them anymore. Maybe it's me aging, or they are much, I don't know what comes first, where the numbers have grown, or it's because my memory is diminishing. Yeah, but I was mightily impressed with how they played. I think they have better structures than they did all those many years ago. They are fairly good with their defensive structures. Fairly good with their defensive structures, but not made for this level yet. That's why I was actually shocked that they got into the top 4. I was actually more of a profound shock, yeah, a pleasant surprise you could call it, that they got in the semi-finals. I also noticed that while their defensive structures have improved, they are still not at the same level with some of the best teams there. They are able to score a try or two in games, but not able to defend as well as they should. And that's the reason why eventually, by the time they lost to China in the semi-final, most of us knew that was a fate they were going to face. But I was also seated there thinking, okay, why should 40 million people beat 1 billion people in sports? Yeah.
Maybe you can help explain to us about the relaxation of rules to ensure that the top 4, make the core.
Yeah.
And the ladies do it at the first time of asking. What does it mean exactly?
Like I explained in part of that interview, World Sevens Rugby, or rugby, is in 2 tiers. There is what they call the HSBC World Rugby 7 Series, which includes the best teams in the world: Australia, New Zealand, England, USA,
France.
They're in that tier. Then there's a second tier where Uganda is, which is the World Challenger 7 Series. So what they're doing this year is that they are giving these teams at the bottom a chance to play more tournaments, because the teams at the top in the first tier are playing as many as 9 tournaments. They start in Dubai, they go to South Africa, they play in New Zealand, they play in Las Vegas, they play in Canada, they play in Seville, they play in London, they play in Edinburgh. They play so many tournaments throughout there in a format that is a league. So for every tournament, the position you finish, you accumulate points. Only the top teams have had that privilege. Also, what World Rugby have done is bring that privilege to the bottom sides. So Uganda get to play in Dubai, they will play in Uruguay, and then the women will go to Poland, the men will go to Germany. After the 3 rounds, the top 4 teams from the lower tier will play against the bottom 4 teams from the upper tier.
Amazing.
Yeah. So if you beat any of these, you replace them at the top. If any of these loses, they go down. So the cycle then continues. So Ugandan players have always had only one opportunity to get into the top tier. And when you get to the top tier, you're going to earn money. And for me, in a Ugandan speak, for me, that also becomes very important. Not only the opportunity to play, but also the money, because there's big sponsors at the top with HSBC Bank and Fly Emirates and all, who are sinking a lot of money at that level. So it's that opportunity. I'm not very confident that Uganda will actually, if you bring it to Ugandan context, that Uganda will be able to compete with the bottom 4 as finishing the top. It's going to be very hard, but if your dreams don't scare you, then you shouldn't sleep. Now these players think they can. While the women got the top 4 for this one, they've got to maintain that position. They've got to Uruguay, play the same. They've got to go to Poland and play the same way. Now the men are in a situation that they have to play catch up. They only finished 9th in Dubai. That means they have to find themselves into the top 4, which would mean knocking out the teams that finished there, which were, there was Kenya, there was Uruguay, there was Chile, who they beat in the final, and I'm forgetting the other, but there were 4 teams in there. So the men know they have to go to Uruguay and finish in the top 4, and then also go to Germany and stay there. Then if they accumulate points after that, then they have a chance to go to Madrid. Play in Madrid. And if you do well in Madrid, maybe you're guaranteed about $18,000 a year.
Amazing.
For running around with some oval-shaped thing that is like an egg.
Well, we have a second part of that interview that we're going to play right about now.
Now, Charles, the next challenge. How then do you utilize the next few weeks, which should be about 5 or so weeks before the team, around 4 weeks before the team then goes to Montevideo. So there is actually no time to rest. And I remember we had a discussion before coming to Dubai, and you told me that during the December festive season, you took only 3 days off. It's going to be even more work.
Absolutely. So
what happens in the next few weeks?
So when we finished the Dubai tournament, so we go back home, rest for some couple of 5 days. We resume to check on the level of injury, the fatigue, and we need to do some little bit of tests on the players and see how they are faring. And then literally we shall be having like 4 weeks of preparations, because when you're closer to the tournament, the intensity reduces of the training session. So literally we have only 1 week in January and maybe 3 weeks, because since February is quite so short. So we believe there is no time, and we just need to carry on with the momentum. There's a lot that we need to improve, and if we sit back to relax, there's a lot that we shall not do right in the following tournament.
Some good performances here. Peace Lekoro, Grace Nabagala scored a lot of tries. Sandra Moli, you could pick so many from how Uganda has performed in this particular tournament going forward. But the one thing that stands out for me, Charles, while watching the game from, I could say, an eagle's eye, or from an impartial viewer seated on the side, one of the things that I noticed about this tournament is how well teams defend. Because some games, especially when you get to the final, and we saw in the women's final, China beat Kenya to win the game by a score of about 2 tries only. And then for the men was even closer, as Kenya beat Chile to win the men's title here. How the processes that make us better defenders, not to concede maybe at worst 12 to 15 points, because I've seen games where we shipped in as many as 30. In the game against China for 3rd place, the team conceded 45. Now, the difference Would you agree with me who thinks that what wins you a tournament at this stage or wins you games at this level is how well you defend? Because every team here will score a try, or they'll score 2 tries minimum, but then thereafter they're able to win games 12-7. How do we then improve our defense and get away from the scores that we've shipped in, conceding 4-5 tries in a game?
Yeah, so defense is the most important thing, and there are some games where you might not need someone who can run, or you might need someone who's going to defend for you well.
Yeah.
We all tend to score, but then every single time you score, you need to defend your score. So you might score a 5, and then if you can't defend your 5 to be full time of, for example, a 5-0, then you'll find the other team scoring a comfortable try of a 7 that is converted, and then you lose the game. So defense is quite so important, and it starts with an individual, and then it builds up onto the defense pattern of the team. How do we defend off the set pieces? How do we defend in general play? How tactical are we in our defense structure? So it's a very key area that takes a lot of time. And defense sometimes it does not come from a good player. You might find that it's from the heart.
Yeah.
If you say no one is going through this space, you mean it. So sometimes you might be a good defender, but then things don't work out. But it's something that it gives us hard time to coach. Sometimes you might work on the pattern and there's one player who is killing the pattern. So it's something that we go through every single time, but we need to improve it every single time. No one is so perfect, but it's something we need to keep trying and see how best we can align our defense.
Now the teams have seen you're playing here for the first time, so maybe no one knows much about Uganda. No one really is keen on what Uganda is going to do. Now you get into Uruguay, everyone knows that now you're one of the best 4 teams at this level, and if you maintain that position, you get a chance to go to Madrid. If you go to Uruguay and finish in the top 4, you go to Poland, finish in the top 4, then you're in Madrid. So you must be different in Uruguay. Something has to be different.
Yeah, absolutely. It might come down to our plays. Are they working? What is not happening in regards to maybe our strikes off the set pieces? So we need to look through what was working well in this tournament, and we might have to adjust and make a few changes, because we can't stick to the same game plan every single time, because we've looked at some teams how they play. Some teams are very physical. Now it depends on the team we're going to play. So it's a matter of deploying in a structure that will help us be a physical game, bring a physical game to some teams, and then a running game to other teams. So I think we need to sit down and agree on what worked well with my team, and then we can strategize and see how best to approach, because if we stick to the same game plan, it's going to be different for us, and it's going to get tough, because now teams know how we play, and they also know how other teams play. So now teams know who are the key players on the other side. So it's going to be a tough one, but still it tasks us to give ourselves the best game we can give onto the.
Okay,
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Charles. For NTV Sport Nights, I'm here with Charles Onen at the Dubai Sevens Stadium for the opener of the Challenger Series. Hopefully, we'll see you in Montevideo, Uruguay.